Please join me in welcoming Anna Burke. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation to be here tonight. I'm very thankful because it's only 5 minutes from home, because everything else I've done recently has been miles away. So I'm liking this. So do not be surprised at the end of the evening I'm the one who bolts home, because it is only 5 minutes away for a change. I grew up in the middle of this electorate in Ashwood and got involved in the Labor Party, not through the usual process of Young Labor, but through social justice issues that I was involved with through my local church, St Benedict's, Burwood. And going way back when, it was the International Year of Peace, and we were going to solve the problems of the world. We were having a youth peace conference. My elder sister Nina, who some of you may or may not know, who also lives in the area, was very involved in this. We were going to solve the problems, we were going to ban the bombs, about nuclear disarmament predominantly at that time. And of course we had this 3-day event in Melbourne Uni, we had all these speakers, and at the end of the conference, instead of a communique back to the UN about peace, the age leads with youth conference ends in brawl. Really good way to, enunciate peace. We had a brawl. What had happened is some people from the extreme left of the debate had invited out a woman from the Vietnamese parliament to be seen as a symbol of peace. Now, at one level, getting rid of the French colonials and rising up and having their own government, that was peaceful. Funnily enough, a recently group of arrived Vietnamese boat people did not see this woman as a symbol of peace. They saw her as a symbol of oppression and torture. And, some of them could even say, we think she was implicated in the murder of our family members. So there was this huge debate that flared up. A whole lot of Vietnamese students, one of them who went on and became a state member of parliament, standing at the back of the room going, understand! Understand. I thought, no, I actually don't. I don't understand. And I think one of the great tragedies about the asylum seeker debate is that the majority of the public actually don't understand. And we aren't actually having an informed debate. We're having a political football. We're using vulnerable asylum seekers who are not illegal. They've never been illegal. It's never been right to term these individuals who are fleeing oppression, torture, things we can't even imagine, that we've used and allowed them to become a political football. At the moment, the UNHCR estimates that there are over 50 million people who are now displaced from their homes. That is more than there was post-World War II. 50 million people who could be classified as a refugee. The majority of those people will not be seeking refuge in another country though. The majority of them are fleeing war-torn areas and will sit out either in another part of their own country or in a second country until they can return home. Of that 50 million, only 7 million will put in for a humanitarian visa to go completely leave their home and seek shelter somewhere else. Of those 7 million, the majority seek to go to Europe. Europe is still the #1 destination for the majority of these individuals. The second's Canada, US, Australia is way down the bottom. We have about 3% of that 7 million put in a formal claim for refugee status in Australia. That includes everyone seeking to come here by boat. It's tiny. We are not being swamped. We are not being overrun. There's about 200,000 people who come to Australia each year, migrate to Australia each year. Of that, again, the humanitarian category is tiny. I can still vividly remember that day in Parliament thinking, why are we, commending the SAS for going on board a ship that has done the right thing by rescuing people at sea? But that is where it began. That is where, instead of us in a bipartisan manner finding a resolution to something that's not a crisis, but it is an issue we need to deal with, instead of having a bipartisan matter, everyone went, in 2001, just if you cast back, Labor looked like it might have won the next election. right, here's an issue. Here's an issue we can wedge on. Here's an issue we can find a differential, and we're going to exploit it. And we're going to make these people the other. You know, the towelheads, the terrorists, the illegals. Going into the last election, Scott Morrison wanted us to identify where every refugee lived so the police would know where they were. Refugees do not commit crime. It's actually proven in the stats. And if they are, it's probably petty crime and they're unaware of the laws in Australia. A lot of it is around motoring issues because a lot of people don't realise you're meant to have a licence and insurance, because at home you don't. And that's the differential. So there's not this issue, but it is creating this mythology. You know, that was the tenor of the debate. Oh, it's we're being swamped, we're being taken over, the traffic's already bad, it's going to be worse. These are difficult, complex discussions. And instead of having difficult, complex discussions, we've sort of tried to minimalise it and demonise and then have the trivial argument. And I mean this, and it's not from soul searching, but trivialising that it's become about stopping lives lost at sea. And somehow we're better because people aren't losing their lives at sea. People like going in for animals. Does my head in occasionally. This is my trick question for the audience. I've given you the clue. It's about animals. In the last 6 years, what do you think more people have written to me about than any other issue? Animals. Yeah, well it is, but one issue.
Live cattle.
Live cattle. You've been to one of my talks before. Live cattle export. Live cattle export. More people will approach me about the issue of live cattle. Literally today, I was going spare because I was getting all these emails from people about sheep in Gaza. I kid you not. And I'm sitting there going, oh, it's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible. But how many people have just recently been killed in Gaza on both sides of the, you know, but you're going to write to me about the sheep. And I think people feel that this issue is too big and too complicated, it's beyond their control. But a defenceless animal is something that they can do something about. Every one of those individuals has the right for their individual claim to be assessed. Of the people who've come here in the last 6+ years, 90% have been found to be genuine refugees. Scott Morrison may claim he stopped the boats, but we're never going to stop refugees. It's a bit like going back to the tenet of the Bible. The poor will always be with us. Refugees in one form or another will always be here. A lot of these people are not only fleeing persecution, they're fleeing natural disasters. And we haven't even turned our minds to climate change refugees, which will be a reality in the near future. There are already a couple of islands that will have to be evacuated now because they're going underwater. I have been a big advocate for a long time about a regional solution, but we can't do it on our own. Nor can we now outsource our problem to Cambodia. I mean, this is the most abhorrent thing. I mean, on top of all the abhorrent things, but this is just amazing. Cambodia, whose human rights record is appalling, but is struggling through its own poverty. For me, it shouldn't have ever been politicised. There is a better solution that Australia could embark upon, and one of the things we all need to do is to have a conversation with everybody else and to stop the rhetoric that somehow we are being invaded. We're at war. They're illegal. And there's lots of them, and they're all coming here, and they all want to take over our way of life and make Sharia law. I think Australia is a country that has shown commitment and heart to people in need at all times of our lives, and that we have the capacity to do that. We have the capacity to have a humane response to this issue. With the Reza Barati, who died in Manus, was that nobody's claims are being processed. It's the uncertainty. It's the uncertainty. You know it yourselves. That uncertainty is what does people's head in. So people started to arrive. Abbott's great at exploiting things. Again, the other, the illegal, the illegal, the illegal. And they, it was one of the areas where I think the Liberal Party did win the last election. I think the Labor Party helped them a lot because of all their internal conflict. I've never shied away from that. I think it was our election, we gave it away because of all the internal ructions that we were going on with. But leaving all that aside, these are people. Let's have a humanitarian response to an issue about people seeking a better life who are fleeing persecution.